My favorite subject growing up in elementary school was recess. I absolutely looked forward to recess. I looked forward to recess, the freedom, running around, all that type of stuff, going on the jungle gym. My favorite thing in the jungle gym were monkey bars. This one time I was so determined to win this contest. I wanted to beat all my friends. So I was like, I'm not going to be as cautious as I used to be. Because what's the worst that could happen, right? So I try and I go as quick as I can. And as I'm going, I'm like, yep, no, doing well, doing great. And then I slip and the wind gets entirely knocked out of me. The next time that I got up on these monkey bars, I kind of had this sense of fear that wasn't there before. The way that I viewed that sense of freedom, that joy, that happiness that was there, it was replaced by this fear, this anxiety. I became worried that I was going to fall again. It started to rob me of my sense of freedom. Somewhere along the road in our own life journeys, this happens to us. We get the wind knocked right out of us. Betrayals, divorces, saying goodbye to the ones that we love far too soon. Well, those become wounds. They knock the wind right out of us, and they start to steal our sense of freedom, because we don't want to go back to that. We don't want to hurt that way again. So we implement things like control. I just need to hold on to control, the things that I can control in this life, and then I'll be okay. Or we just start judging others because deep down, somewhere along in our life journey, we fell. We got hurt. We got the wind knocked right out of us. We were not designed to live with all of that baggage, live with all that constant weight, weighing us down, holding us back. God designed us to live in freedom. And whether you're a follower of Jesus or not right now, we all tend to look for freedom in temporary ways like avoidance of things, putting it off, procrastination, distractions, addictions, those types of things. But that's never going to actually give us lasting sense of freedom. Like, Corey, yeah, you're telling me that there's freedom out there. I just don't believe you. How do I get there? How do I release what I'm holding on to and live into that freedom? And that's what we're going to dive deeper into. Our one thing for our talk here is I will use my freedom to glorify God. Our freedom is found in the relationship that we have with Jesus. But what does that word glorify God even mean? It's not really a common word that we use day in, day out. Glorify really means it's that moment when you look back at your life or you're looking at it right now and you see God's power in your life. You see that you were able to do these things. You were able to go through life, not all on your own power. What I want us to do the rest of our time here is really dive into a person's life, a real person that we have from the Bible, who had a life before they knew Jesus, and then through taking these steps to freedom, the same steps that are offered to each and every one of us right here, right now, through taking those steps to freedom, using his new life to glorify God. I want to take a look at that person, and his name's Paul. Paul was a first follower of Jesus. He actually, after meeting Jesus, having a relationship with Jesus, he went on to plant 14 different churches throughout all of the world. This was a time when being a follower of Jesus was heavily persecuted. He ended up losing his life for Jesus. He wrote half of our New Testament, the portion of the Bible that talks about who Jesus is, his life, his teachings, his ministry, but also the actions of the church, what it looked like for those first followers of Jesus. And I want us to choose freedom like Paul chose freedom and take those same steps to freedom. Because when we first meet Paul, he was an entirely different person. He was one whose baggage became his identity, who was fueled by his judgment over others. Trying to control and protect became who he was. And this is what he had to say. It's in the book of Acts. chapter 22, verse 3. And this is what Paul had to say. Then Paul said, I am a Jew born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia. And basically why he's telling us all of that is that he had a kind of dual citizenship. He was both Roman, but then religiously and culturally Jewish, which was pretty unique during Jesus' time. And it goes on to say this, I was brought up and educated here in Jerusalem under Gamaliel. He's telling us about his identity. His identity was in his education, in his job, and things like that. Gamaliel was a name, a very popular name. He was actually the single greatest judge and scholar during Jesus' time. And so Paul, because he was so gifted, he became the understudy of the single greatest judge and scholar during Jesus' time. As his student, I was carefully trained in our Jewish laws and customs. He knew all of the Bible. He knew all of the rules, and he's really, really good at judging others, judging what was right and judging what was wrong. And then it says this, I became very zealous to honor God in everything I did, just like all of you here today. I became very zealous to honor God in everything I did. And I persecuted the followers of the way. The way was what early believers, early followers of Jesus called themselves. The early church was called the way. And then it goes on to say this, hounding some to death, arresting both men and women, and throwing them in prison. This is not a metaphor. This is literal. Paul, the same person that I talked to you about before, who was so on fire for God, started 14 different churches, grew up those leaders, taught them what it meant to live a godly life. This is where he started. We're going to take a look at all those steps that he took to freedom and what he did. And I want us to use Paul as our guide to see what those steps are, because they're offered to all of us, no matter where we are right now. You can choose freedom. It's a choice that we all have to make. We can only make for ourselves. We can all choose freedom where we're at right now. So the first step is that we have to recognize God's voice. I want to ask you guys a question, and there is a right answer to this. If my wife was calling me on the phone, there was no caller ID or anything like that to indicate who was calling. I pick it up, and she starts talking to me, and about it in a minute in, I'm like, who is this? Do you think that would go over well? Why? Because we have a relationship. I should be able to recognize her voice, even if I'm not seeing her. Even if I have no indication of who it is I'm speaking to. If she gets on that phone, I should recognize her voice. We've lived life together. That's exactly our first step to freedom. We have to live our life with Jesus. We have to know his voice. That comes through praying, that comes through reading the Bible, but it also comes through community, being here together. The problem is that for many of us, we find security, we find comfort in our baggage. It kind of becomes our identity, much like it became the identity for Paul, where it's hard for us to actually let go of what hurt us long, long ago. The second step that we have is that we have to follow God's directions to freedom. Church, go ahead and say that one with me. Follow God's directions to freedom. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men with Saul stood speechless, for they heard the sound of someone's voice, but Saul, no one. Saul picked himself up off the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him by the hand to Damascus. And go ahead and say this part with me, church. He remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. The thing about him becoming blind was that it also showcased not just his physical blindness, but his spiritual blindness. He thought that he knew God. He lived his whole life for that. When it came down to it, he didn't even recognize his voice. It showed that his life was really dark, really empty. And he wasn't protecting God's people, he was actually opposing them, putting them to death. And many of us have walked those same streets as Paul, now haven't we? Having the anger start to fuel our next step. Starting to delight in others' destructions. Well, it all has to start some way. And what we're told by Paul, the same person here, is that he wrote to a church that he planted where true freedom lies. And he had this to say, "For the Lord is the Spirit, and wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." You can't just hold on to God and then hold on to your baggage. At some point, you have to willingly let it go. In order for us to regain some sense of that freedom that we had growing up, that hope, that joy, that peace that we desire so much. The truth is, unless we deal with our baggage, unless we can see it, start to understand it, start to where it happened in our lives, where along our life did we pick up this wound, we're never going to be able to be free from it. And God desires us to be in relationship and to be in freedom. The next step that we take is step 3, and it says this: we have to live in the freedom of your new life. So Ananias was a follower of Jesus in the city of Damascus. That was the city that Paul was traveling to. And God came to Ananias and he said, "I need you to go and see Paul and tell him all about me." So Ananias went and found Saul. He laid his hands on him and said, "Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road, has sent me so that you might regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit." Ananias was called to go and forgive Paul in order for Paul to then go and plant those 14 churches, to go and write half of our New Testament. He wouldn't have been able to do that if this person said, "No, I'm not going to do that." You've been given a new chance. Imagine not feeling that weight of our baggage, having our sense of purpose and life restored. This week, I challenge each of us to take this next step, to ask God to open our eyes to what is holding us back. God, what is our baggage? What right now is robbing me of that sense of freedom? The freedom that you are offering me right now. There's this famous quote. This quote by a famous pastor, Tim Keller, that says this: "It's really about the cost of forgiveness." And he has this to say: "Forgiveness means bearing the cost instead of making the wrongdoer do it, so that you can reach out in love and seek your enemy's renewal and change." And now, isn't that exactly what Ananias did for Paul, so that Paul could be in freedom? Forgiveness means absorbing the debt of the sin yourself. Everyone who forgives great evil goes through a death into resurrection and experiences nails, blood, sweat, and tears. Ask God to reveal in you what happened in my life. What happened along the way and knocked the wind right out of me? Started to steal some of my joy, some of my purpose, some of my hope. What made you stop living in freedom? And what are you holding on to so tightly right now? What is your baggage weighing you down? Because the reality is that our path to freedom is a lot like those monkey bars. In order to keep moving on, you have to hold on to something, right? But then you reach out and you hold on to something else, and you're never going to get anywhere unless you do what? Go. Holding on is keeping you right where you're at right now. The monkey bars, you hold on and then you let go, and then you hold on and you let go, and that is our path to freedom. That is what God has given us. And maybe we feel like if we're in control, we can hold on, but it's just keeping us right here, not moving anywhere. We have to go. We have to reach out to God and have faith that He will keep you moving forward, keep you going to freedom, be able to glorify Him. And while you are doing that, you have to let go. You have to let go and absorb that cost of forgiveness. Because that's the price of freedom. It's the price of freedom that God has given us, and those are the steps that we have to face. Do you trust in Jesus? Is that what you are holding on to? Or are you holding on to all of the hurt, all of the pain, those times that we fell down? My prayer is that as you take that next step this week, that you will go and you will hold on to the freedom that is found in Jesus, all the while rediscovering your purpose, your hope, your joy, and your freedom found in Him. So how will you glorify God today? Let me pray with me, church.